The dangers of 3D printing guns. The introduction of 3D printing, also known as additive manufacturing, has the potential to affect the world by simplifying construction, shortening supply and distribution chains, and overall shortening the manufacturing plan and assembly lines. But what about 3D printing guns? Well, for decades, weapons manufacturing has been the domain of arms industry heavyweights like Glock and Sig Sauer. Making a gun from scratch at home required thousands of dollars of equipment and years of engineering experience. But in recent years, that has begun to change. Advancements in 3D printing technology has yielded increasingly reliable 3D printed firearms, many of which require no federally regulated components to function. Below, we break down the basics of plastic 3D printed firearms and the controversy generated by this swelling movement to deliver them to the masses. So what is a 3D printed gun? In the simplest terms, it's any firearm that includes components manufactured with a 3D printer. But 3D printed guns vary a lot. Some models, like the 3D printed gun company defense distributor Liberator, can be made almost entirely on a 3D printer. Others require many additional parts, which are often metal. For example, many 3D printed gun blueprints focus on a weapon's lower receiver, which is basically the chassis of the firearm. Recent history, a Texas law student and employees at his nonprofit company made headlines in 2013 by 3D printing a plastic gun doubled the Liberator and posting blueprints on the internet. They employed an industry of 3D printing a printer that retailed new for about $25,000 to $35,000. However, they used a machine that cost a fraction of that price online. Although primitive, the single-shot weapon fired multiple live rounds. Well, over 100,000 individuals downloaded the blueprints before the U.S. government intervened. The gun featured a metal piece, although potentially removable, and a firing pin to make it detectable. Shortly after this time, a Canadian gun maker 3D printed a plastic single-shot 22 caliber rifle called the Grizzly. After firing one round, the gun's barrel split, and a nail serving as a firing pin constituted the only detectable component. The maker later upgraded the weapon to shoot 14 rounds. He posted the design in an online forum and a video of the test firing on YouTube. Apparently, based on its new policy of not featuring instructions on how to make the gun, YouTube removed the footage. And in early 2014, an individual in Japan 3D printed the Zigzag, a plastic revolver, again 3D printed, but because of the country's strict anti-gun laws, the maker of the weapon received a 2-year prison sentence for producing several guns and posting instructional videos on the internet. Since then, 3D printing of such weapons has flourished. Police, for example, police in Oregon arrested 2 individuals for illegally possessing an AR-15 assault rifle in June of 2015. Authorities believe its lower receiver, the key to what makes it a gun, was 3D printed. And a weapon and 3D printing enthusiast produced the Shuddy, a semi-automatic handgun in early 2016. He made 95% of the weapon in plastic on a machine that cost less than $5,000. It fired at least 800 rounds, and the individual later announced he has an improved version. And at an airport in Nevada in August of 2016, the U.S. Transportation Security Administration found a 3D printed plastic revolver in a carry-on luggage. Authorities only detected the gun because it contained live rounds. 1 month later, a YouTuber vlogger 3D printed the plastic Songbird, which uses rubber bands for springs and roofing nail for a firing pin. This gun can shoot multiple .357 caliber rounds. During early 2017, an individual received a 3.5-year prison sentence for unlawfully manufacturing and dealing firearms. He used 3D printers and a computer numeric control milling machine to make the lower receivers for AR-15 rifles. Individuals continue to push the boundaries on what they can produce with this technology. While the law prohibits convicted felons from obtaining or producing guns, 3D printing allows such individuals to secretly make undetectable weapons. Throughout history, people have distinguished or concealed guns in such items as tobacco pipes, cameras, canes, umbrellas, and pocket watches. One of the strengths of 3D printing customization makes this practice possibly in a broader range of products. Thus, 3D printed gun might look like a shoe, a hairbrush, or a soda can. The look of such a weapon depends only on the designer's imaginations, skill in using software and the 3D printers, and the choice of the machine. Lawmakers, though, face challenges in regulating 3D printed weapons, but they have made strides. For instance, in November 2013, and Philadelphia became the first city to enact legislation related to such use of this technology. The law prohibits making or owning these weapons. And in December 2013, following the production of the Liberated and related media coverage, lawmakers extended the Federal Undetectable Firearms Act, which forbids manufacture or possession for 10 years. As a result of the settlement, which the Texas company, the U.S. Congress, also has begun considering legislation to ban online posting of 3D printed weapons blueprints, as well as 3D printing of some weapons. California, for example, enacted a law that just went into force on January 1st, 2018, requires 3D printed guns to have a serial number and permanent metal components. Owners must register the weapons, and they cannot sell or transfer them. Violation constitutes a misdemeanor, although unfortunately such law proved difficult to enforce unless authorities catch someone with an untraceable, undetectable, or unregistered 3D printed gun. Again, lawmakers still face challenges in regulating 3D printed guns, but it is trying to make, but it has made its strides. Again, government innovations, the U.S. military has also employed 3D printing for its purposes. For example, which is a positive for the Army announced a grenade launcher in March of 2017, completely 3D printed except for the springs and fasteners. The weapon fires 3D printed grenades. Personnel in the FBI's Terrorist Explosion Device Analyst Center employ 3D printers to study whether terrorists can use the technology to make bombs. The agency aims to think ahead and prepare for this modern horror. Is it legal to make a gun using 3D printer? In most cases, yes. But federal law permits the unlicensed manufacture of firearms, including those made using a 3D printer, as long as they include metal components. In the absence of federal regulation, a handful of states have taken their own steps to clamp down on the creation of homemade guns. In California, again, anybody manufacturing a firearm is legally required to, again, obtain a serial number for the gun from the state, regardless of how it's made. And additionally, in New Jersey, you are supposed to obtain a federal manufacturing license before 3D printing a gun. The state also criminalizes the manufacture, sale, or possession of undetectable firearms and made it illegal to purchase parts to make an unserialized gun. Several states, including New Mexico and Virginia, are considering bills that would enact similar restrictions. But what about sharing the blueprints online? The legality of sharing the files required to print guns and gun components is mucker territory. There is no federal legislation bans on the practice, although in 2019, the Trump administration transferred oversight of gun exports from the State Department to the Commerce Department, which would have rolled back restrictions on releasing 3D printed gun blueprints. But a second suit filed by a coalition of state attorneys general has kept oversight of the files within the State Department. Pending future cases, New Jersey's Attorney General Grunwald is a plaintiff in the case. If a company like the defense distributor can simply sell printable gun blueprints to their customers without running the usual required background checks to make sure someone's not a criminal, it would blow up the entire regime of firearm laws that can have in this country, he said. In conclusion, people with unlawful intent can misuse 3D printing, but this does not mean that the technology is inherently flawed. People are. Although the size of the problem could increase, this only holds true because 3D printing is so revolutionary and descriptive. Governments and law enforcement agencies must learn the risk of this technology, plan accordingly, and also use it to solve crimes and severe other noble purposes. Thank you.